Have you ever felt the exact moment your heart breaks in two different directions at once? I have. It happened the day after I buried my mother. Standing in front of my open laptop at 6:47 inches the morning, staring at 12 empty browser tabs where my college applications used to be. The house still smelled like the funeral flowers, white lilies and roses, that sickeningly sweet scent that clings to grief like a second skin. My eyes were swollen from crying through the night, my throat raw, my chest hollow. And there, on my screen, was a different kind of emptiness. Every single application I'd spent months crafting gone. Vanished. Deleted. The browser history wiped clean, like my future had been erased with a few clicks while I was saying goodbye to the woman who believed in me most. My name is Zara, and I was 17 years old when I learned that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the people who sit across from you at breakfast, who sleep down the hall, who smile at you with teeth full of poison. My mother had been sick for 8 months, cancer, aggressive and merciless. In those final weeks, when hospice moved into our living room, and every breath she took sounded like breaking glass, I'd spent my nights finishing college applications between shifts at her bedside. 12 schools, 12 carefully composed essays about resilience, about caring for a dying parent while maintaining a 4 gigapascals, about dreams of studying computer science at a place that could challenge me, shape me, launch me into a future my mother would never see but desperately wanted for me. Princeton was my early decision school, the dream, the golden ticket, the place my mom and I had visited 2 years before, when she was still healthy, still laughing, still convinced I could do anything. We'd become a blended family 4 years earlier, when I was 13. My mom married Richard, a kind man who owned a hardware store in our suburban New Jersey town, steady, practical, the kind of person who fixed things with his hands and believed in simple solutions. He came with 2 kids, Dylan, who was 15 when we all moved in together, and Madison, who was 14. From the outside, we probably looked like a sitcom neat little Brady Bunch setup, everyone smiling in the holiday photos Richard insisted we take every year. But inside the frame, something else was growing. Resentment, maybe. Competition, definitely. Dylan and Madison were B and C students who coasted through school, more interested in social media followers and weekend parties than homework. I wasn't trying to show off, I just genuinely loved learning, loved the satisfaction of understanding something complex, loved the feeling of doors opening in my mind. But every A I brought home felt like an accusation to them, every award ceremony another reminder that we weren't the same. My mother saw it. In those last few months, when the medication made her thoughts drift, but her love remained sharp, she'd hold my hand and whisper, "Don't let anyone dim your light, baby. Not for comfort, not for peace, you shine." I didn't fully understand what she meant then. I thought she was talking about staying confident, about believing in myself. I didn't realize she was warning me. She'd seen the way Madison's eyes narrowed when I talked about college visits, the way Dylan made jokes about the genius whenever I stayed up late studying. She'd seen the cracks forming, and she'd tried to build a wall of words around me before she left. But words can't stop someone determined to tear you down. The morning of her funeral, Richard had driven us to the cemetery, me in the front seat, silent and shattered, Dylan and Madison in the back, whispering to each other in a way that made my skin prickle. I'd left my laptop on my desk, password protected but plugged in, the screen dark. I'd been working on a final revision to my Princeton supplemental essay the night before, something about how loss teaches you the value of time, how watching someone fade makes you want to build something that lasts. Sentimental maybe, but true. Raw, real. I'd saved it, closed the laptop, and collapsed into bed, fully clothed, too exhausted even to cry anymore. The funeral was a blur of black clothes and murmured condolences, of standing beside a casket that held the person who'd made me feel safe in the world. Richard cried. I stood frozen. Dylan and Madison looked bored. When we got home that afternoon, I went straight to my room. I needed silence, needed space, needed to not be performing grief for people who kept asking if I was okay, when okay had left the building 8 months ago. I fell asleep for a few hours, that heavy, dreamless sleep that follows trauma. When I woke up, the house was dark, except for the glow from the kitchen. I could hear Richard downstairs, the clatter of dishes, the low murmur of the TV. Dylan and Madison's doors were closed, music thumping faintly from Madison's room. Everything seemed normal. Painfully, horribly normal, as if the world hadn't just ended. I sat up, rubbed my face, and opened my laptop to distract myself, maybe reread my essays, remind myself that somewhere in the future, there was still something to hope for. That's when I saw it. Or rather, didn't see it. The college application portal bookmarks gone. I frowned, clicked to my saved passwords, nothing. Opened my email, searched for confirmation receipts from the Common App, from Princeton's early decision portal. The emails were there, but when I clicked the links, I got error messages. Application not found. No submission on record. My heart started pounding. That sick adrenaline rush that starts in your gut and floods upward. I checked every single school. Brown gone, Yale gone, MIT, Stanford, Columbia, all the state schools I'd chosen as safeties gone, gone, gone. 12 applications, hundreds of hours of work, completely erased. The essays I'd backed up on my hard drive deleted. The folder I'd created with all my materials empty, sitting in the trash bin, which had been emptied. I sat there for a long moment, my brain refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. This wasn't a technical glitch. This was deliberate, methodical. Someone had gone through my computer and systematically destroyed months of work. Someone had known exactly what they were doing. And there were only 3 other people in this house. My hands started shaking. I stood up, walked to my door, opened it. The hallway was quiet. I went to Dylan's room first. Knocked. No answer. Knocked harder. What? His voice, annoyed. I opened the door. He was lying on his bed, scrolling through his phone, the picture of innocence. Did you touch my laptop today? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. He looked up, eyebrows raised. Why would I touch your laptop? Reasonable tone, almost amused. Someone deleted all my college applications, I said. Every single one. They're gone. He sat up, and for just a fraction of a second, I saw something flicker across his face. Not surprise. Something else. Satisfaction, maybe. Or fear. Then it was gone, replaced by concern that looked practiced. That's crazy. Did you check with the websites? Maybe it's a system error. I stared at him. The files on my computer are gone too, Dylan. Someone went into my hard drive and deleted everything. He shrugged. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should check your cloud backup or something. I've been in my room all day. Lie. I knew it was a lie the way you know the smell of smoke means fire. But I had no proof, just instinct and the hollow feeling in my chest that told me something terrible had happened while I was sleeping off my mother's funeral. I went to Madison's room next. She was easier to read, always had been. When I asked her the same question, her eyes went wide, too wide, and she shook her head too quickly. I didn't touch anything, Zara. I swear. Maybe you deleted them by accident? You've been really stressed. Her voice trailed off, trying to sound sympathetic, but landing somewhere near patronizing. I didn't delete them by accident, I said quietly. And I don't think it was an accident at all. She stood up, suddenly defensive. Are you accusing me of something? Because that's really messed up. Especially today of all days. Today of all days, I repeated. And something in my voice made her stop. The day after we buried my mother. Yes, Madison. Today of all days. She looked away. You should talk to my dad. Maybe he can help you figure it out. But when I went downstairs and tried to explain to Richard what had happened, I ran into a wall I hadn't anticipated. He listened, nodding. His face creased with concern. And then he said something that made my blood run cold. Actually, Zara, Dylan and Madison mentioned you'd been talking about taking a gap year. About maybe not going to college right away, working at the store instead, figuring things out. They said you seemed overwhelmed. I stared at him. What? They said you told them you were having second thoughts, he continued gently. That with your mom gone, you wanted to stay close to home, contribute to the family. And honestly, sweetheart, I think that might be a good idea. You've been through so much. Maybe taking some pressure off, working for a year. Being here with us. The room tilted. They'd planned this. Not just deleted my applications, but built a narrative, poisoned the well before I could even cry for help. Richard, I never said that. I never said any of that. I want to go to college. I need to go to college. My mom and I, we planned this. We visited schools. She wanted this for me. Your mother wanted you to be happy and healthy," he interrupted, and his tone had shifted from gentle to firm. "And right now, I think you need stability. You need family. The store could always use another person, and it would give you time to grieve properly, not rush off to some high-pressure university where you'd be alone, and I wouldn't be alone. I'd be building a future." My voice cracked. "Richard, someone deleted my applications. Someone went into my computer and sabotaged Zara." He held up his hand. "I know you're upset. I know you're grieving. But you need to stop accusing your siblings of something this serious without any proof. They wouldn't do that. They care about you. Siblings." He'd called them my siblings. And in that moment, I realized how completely I was trapped. My mother was gone, the only person who would have believed me instantly, who would have fought for me, who would have torn this house apart to get to the truth. Richard was a good man, but he was their father first, and he wanted to believe his kids were good people. To believe otherwise would mean admitting he'd raised saboteurs, betrayers, the kind of people who would kick someone while they were drowning in grief. Easier to believe the grieving teenager was confused, stressed, imagining things. Easier to reframe it as concern, as family stepping in to protect someone from herself. I looked at his face, sincere, convinced, immovable, and I knew I was on my own. That night, I lay in bed and made a decision. I could scream, rage, try to force Richard to see what his children had done, or I could go around them. I could fix this myself. My mother had raised me to be resourceful, to solve problems, to believe that walls were just puzzles waiting for the right approach. So I got up, pulled out a notebook, and made a list. 12 schools. 12 admissions offices. 12 phone calls I'd have to make. 12 explanations I'd have to give. 12 times I'd have to relive the humiliation of saying, "Someone sabotaged my applications, and I need your help." The deadlines had passed for most of them. Regular decision deadlines were in early January, and it was now mid-November. But Princeton's early decision notification was still weeks away. Maybe, just maybe, there was something I could do. I started the next morning. I set up in the public library after school, used their computers, their phone. I didn't want Dylan or Madison to overhear, didn't want Richard to interrupt with more suggestions about the hardware store. The first 3 calls were brutal. Sympathetic admissions officers who genuinely seemed to feel bad. But no, deadlines were deadlines. System rules, university policy. "Sorry, but there's nothing we can do." The 4th call. To Brown. The woman I spoke to paused when I explained about my mother's funeral, about coming home to find everything deleted. "That's horrible," she said softly. "I'm so sorry, but our system shows no record of an application from you at all. If it was deleted before submission, there's no way to retrieve it, and our deadline was November 1st. I wish I could help." I thanked her, hung up, and put my head in my hands. This was hopeless, but I kept going, call after call, school after school. Some were kind, some were bureaucratic. None of them could help. By the time I got to Princeton number 11 on my list, saved for near the end because it hurt the most to hope for, I was exhausted, hollowed out, barely able to keep my voice steady. The admissions office transferred me twice before I got someone named Mrs. Patricia Okonkwo, an assistant director. I went through my explanation one more time, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice, failing. "I submitted my early decision application in October," I said. "I have the confirmation email. But when I try to access the portal now, it says no application found. Someone deleted it from my computer, and apparently from the system, and I—" "Wait," she interrupted. "You said you have a confirmation email?" "Yes." "From our office, with an application ID number?" "Yes." There was clicking on her end, keyboard sounds, a long pause. "Miss Okonkwo?" I asked quietly. "I'm here," she said. "I'm looking at something strange. Your application ID is in our system, but it's flagged as withdrawn. Withdrawn on November 8th, the day before yesterday. But the IP address for the withdrawal doesn't match the IP address for the original submission." My heart stopped. "What does that mean?" "It means someone other than you accessed the system and withdrew your application," she said slowly, "which is impossible unless someone had your login credentials." She paused, checking. "Miss Rahman, This is a serious issue. This is potentially fraud. I didn't withdraw it, I said, and my voice broke. Someone hacked into my account. My stepbrother and stepsister. I can't prove it, but I know it was them. They deleted everything the day after my mother's funeral, and they told their father I changed my mind about college, and he believed them, and now. Your mother's funeral, she repeated. When? 3 days ago. More clicking. A longer pause. Then, Miss Rahman, I'm looking at your recommendation letters. Both your guidance counselor and your AP computer science teacher mention that you've been dealing with a recent family tragedy. Your essay also references your mother's illness. I'm so sorry. Is this about your mother? Yes, I whispered. She died on November 6th. I buried her on the 7th. And on the 8th, I woke up and everything was gone. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Mrs. Okonkwo said, her voice tight with something that sounded like anger on my behalf. This is unacceptable. No one should have to deal with this kind of sabotage, especially not while grieving. I'm going to put you on a brief hold. Don't hang up. I waited, my hand cramping around the phone, barely breathing. When she came back, her tone was different, brisk, purposeful. Miss Rahman, I've spoken with my director. We're going to reinstate your application effective immediately. The withdrawal is being flagged as fraudulent. We're also going to expedite your review given the circumstances. I can't make any promises about the decision, but I can promise you'll get a fair evaluation. Your application materials are still in our system. The withdrawal didn't delete them, just changed the status. We'll have an answer for you within 2 weeks, before the standard early decision notification date. I couldn't speak. The relief was so sudden, so overwhelming, that tears started pouring down my face in the middle of the library. Thank you, I managed. Thank you so much. Thank you for not giving up, she said. And Miss Rahman? Document everything. This kind of sabotage, if it's what you think it is beyond unethical. It's potentially criminal. Protect yourself. I spent the next 2 weeks in a fog of hope and terror. I didn't tell Richard what Princeton had said. I didn't tell Dylan or Madison. I went to school, came home, worked on homework, avoided eye contact at dinner. Dylan and Madison seemed almost relaxed, confident. A few times, I caught Madison smirking at me across the table when Richard mentioned maybe I could start at the store after Christmas, learn the inventory system. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd successfully derailed me, kept me in place, made sure I didn't fly higher than they ever could, and I let them think it. Because the only thing better than success is success that comes as a complete shock to the people who tried to bury you. The letter came on November 30th, a Saturday. Richard brought in the mail, flipping through bills and catalogs, and then he stopped. Stared at a thick envelope with Princeton's logo in the corner. Zara? He called, his voice strange. There's something here for you. I came downstairs, my heart in my throat. Dylan and Madison were in the living room, watching TV. They looked up when Richard held out the envelope. I took it, and I knew. You can tell by the weight. Thin envelopes mean rejection. Thick envelopes mean welcome home. This one was thick. I opened it carefully, pulled out the letter, and read the first line. Congratulations. It is with great pleasure that we offer you admission to Princeton University's class of 2028. I looked up. Richard was staring at me, his face a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. You applied to college? He said slowly. But Dylan and Madison said. Dylan and Madison lied. I said, clearly. They deleted my applications while I was at my mother's funeral. All 12 of them. They told you I wanted to work at the store instead because they didn't want me to go to a school they couldn't get into. Princeton reinstated my application because their system flagged the fraudulent withdrawal. And this, I held up the letter, is a full scholarship acceptance. I'm going to Princeton, Richard. Just like my mom and I planned. The room went silent. Then Dylan stood up, his face flushing red. We didn't. Don't, I said. And something in my voice made him stop. Don't lie anymore. I know what you did. Princeton knows what you did. You hacked into my accounts and deleted months of work because you were jealous. Because you couldn't stand that I was going somewhere you never could. You don't know that, Madison said, but her voice was shaking. We were trying to help you. You were so stressed, and we thought, You thought if I stayed here, working at the store, you wouldn't have to feel like failures in comparison. I finished. You thought if you could trap me, limit me, keep me small, it would make you feel bigger. But that's not how it works. Tearing someone else down doesn't lift you up. It just makes you someone who tears people down. Richard was staring at his children, and I watched the truth settle over him like ash. Did you do this? He asked them quietly. Did you sabotage Zara's college applications? Dylan looked at the floor. Madison's eyes filled with tears, not of remorse, I thought, but of being caught. We just thought she needed time to grieve. Dylan tried. We thought, you accessed her private accounts without permission, Richard said, his voice hollow. You deleted her work. You lied to me about it. You tried to destroy her future because you were jealous. He looked at me, and I saw something break in his face. Zara, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have your mother would have believed you instantly. And I. His voice cracked. He sat down heavily on the couch. What have you two done? The next few weeks were chaos. Richard demanded Dylan and Madison confess everything what they'd done, how they'd gotten my passwords, guessed them, apparently, by watching me type. Why they'd thought this was acceptable. They had no good answers, just excuses that crumbled under the weight of their actions. Richard called his ex-wife, Dylan and Madison's mother, who'd remarried and moved to Florida. He told her what their children had done. I don't know exactly what was said in that conversation, but 2 days later, Richard told me he was filing for divorce. I can't stay married to someone who raised children capable of this, he said quietly. And who would defend them instead of condemn them? That's not the kind of family I thought I was building. I'm so sorry, Zara. I failed you. I failed your mother. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to comfort him, but a larger part was still angry. Angry that he'd believed them over me. Angry that my mother had to die before her husband would see his own children, clearly. Angry that I'd had to fight this battle alone, so I just nodded. I'm going to Princeton in August, I said. I'll stay until then. But after that, this isn't my home anymore. He looked at me with devastated eyes and said, I understand. Dylan and Madison moved out in January. Went to live with their mother in Florida. I heard later they both ended up at community college. Nothing wrong with that path, except they'd spent so much energy mocking it, using it as a threat, treating it like failure. Now it was their reality. And I wondered if they understood the irony. I left for Princeton that August, and it felt like stepping into sunlight after years in a cave. I studied computer science with a focus on digital security, specifically around protecting personal data from unauthorized access. My senior thesis was on developing affordable security systems for students' college application materials, encryption, multi-factor authentication, audit trails that could catch tampering. The project got attention, and after graduation, I launched it as a nonprofit service. We've now protected over 50,000 students' applications from potential sabotage, and every time I get an email from a kid saying we saved their work, I think about my mother, about how she told me to shine, and how the people who tried to dim that light ultimately just taught me to burn brighter. I saw Richard once more, 2 years into college. He reached out, asked if we could meet when I was home for winter break. We had coffee at a diner near campus, and he looked older, grayer, worn down by choices and consequences. I wanted you to know that I never stopped feeling guilty, he said. About not believing you, about choosing comfort over truth. I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl. You taught me something important, I told him. You taught me that I can't rely on other people to fight my battles, even people who are supposed to protect me. You taught me that sometimes you have to save yourself. He nodded slowly. Your mother would be proud of who you've become, he said. I know, I replied. And I did know, because the woman who held my hand through her last days, who whispered about not dimming my light, she'd given me everything I needed to survive what came after. She'd given me spine, stubbornness, the bone-deep certainty that I deserved a future worth fighting for. Dylan and Madison sent me Facebook friend requests a few years after I graduated. I didn't accept them. Not out of cruelty, but because some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. They'd made choices that revealed who they were at their core, people willing to destroy someone else's dreams to manage their own insecurity. I didn't hate them. I just didn't need them in my life. I heard through the grapevine that Dylan eventually finished his associate degree and was working in restaurant management. Madison dropped out after a year, got into makeup artistry, was doing reasonably well with a YouTube channel. Good for them, genuinely. But their lives and mine had diverged the moment they decided my success was their enemy, and there was no going back from that. Here's what I learned. What I want you to understand if you're listening to this, and you've ever been sabotaged, betrayed, knocked down by people who were supposed to support you. Your resilience is not about them. Your success is not revenge, it's reclamation. When Dylan and Madison deleted those applications, they thought they were erasing my future. What they actually did was show me exactly how strong I was, how far I could go even when the people in my own house were actively working against me. They thought they were building a cage. They built a launching pad instead. Every time I speak at conferences about digital security, every time I help a student protect their work, every time I wake up in a life I built from scorched earth and stubbornness, I'm not thinking about what they took from me. I'm living in what they couldn't take. My intelligence, my determination, my mother's voice in my head, telling me to shine. So here's my question for you, the one I ask students all the time. Have you ever had someone try to sabotage your dreams? Have you ever been betrayed by people who were supposed to be on your side? What did you do? Did you give up? Or did you find another way? Because there's always another way, even when the door slams in your face and the people holding the key are smiling. There are windows. There are walls you can climb. There are strangers like Mrs. Okonkwo at Princeton who will see your truth and fight for you when your own family won't. The world is full of locked doors and also full of people with bolt cutters. You just have to keep searching, keep asking, keep refusing to accept that someone else's cruelty gets to write the ending of your story. They get a chapter, maybe. A bad one, a painful one you'll remember forever. But the rest of the book? That's yours. Write it in fire if you have to. Just write it. I'm Zara Rahman, Princeton graduate, founder of Secure Apply, daughter of a woman who taught me that light doesn't ask permission to shine, it just does. And if someone tries to sabotage your dreams, tries to delete your future because they're terrified of their own mediocrity, remember this. Their fear is not your ceiling. Their limitations are not your boundaries. Their actions reveal who they are, not who you are. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming so undeniably, brilliantly, impossibly successful that they have to live the rest of their lives knowing they tried to stop a force they never had a chance of containing. Not because you wanted to hurt them, but because you refused to let them hurt you. That's power. That's freedom. That's what my mother meant when she told me not to let anyone dim my light. So keep shining, keep climbing, keep protecting your dreams like they're sacred because they are. And if you've survived betrayal and come out stronger, if you've turned sabotage into fuel, drop a comment and tell me about it. I want to hear your story. Because every single one of us who refuses to stay down, who gets back up and builds something beautiful from the wreckage, we're proof that they can delete the applications, but they can never delete the applicant. We remain, we rise, we win. Not because we're perfect, but because we're persistent. And that, in the end, makes all the difference.